Good morning, Wham! There you go, buddy. I'm glad to have you back. We've had a few rough days. I know when we'll be back in school when I do this, but this is the first night we've had electricity, so we're excited. Connor, let's go, and let's go on chapter 35. I don't know why you're on 33. There you go.
Yeah.
Carolina, riches, rice, and slaves. Yep. All right, so let's learn about North and South Carolina. The Carolinas, North and South, were granted to 8 Lord proprietors by King Charles II. The Lords never meant to live in America, and they didn't. They just planned to get rich by using the Carolinas to produce 3 products that were expensive in England: wine, silk, and olive oil. The Carolinas worked out, but not as the Lords had expected. Indigo, a plant grown for its blue dye, and rice became principal crops, not wine, silk, or olive oil. Eventually, the colonies were bought back by the king. The Lords lost out, and the Carolinas became royal colonies. In South Carolina, Charlestown, named for Charles II, prospered from its beginning. No longer were there terrible starving and dying times when a colony was founded. Jamestown and Plymouth had taught the colonists what not to do. Charleston, which was the name Charlestown turned into, soon became the busiest port in the South. It attracted younger sons of the English nobility, who gave it an aristocratic flavor. Many of the Charlestown's leaders came from the tiny island of Barbados in the Caribbean Sea. In the 17th century, Barbados was the wealthiest and most crowded of all English-American colonies. In 1680, Barbados exports were more valuable than the exports of all of the North American mainland. South Carolina had to find ways to attract settlers. One way was to practice religious tolerance. That's good. Religious wars were making people flee from Europe. The Carolinas welcomed them. That led to an interesting mix of peoples. Scots settled on the coast and helped fight off Spanish attacks. French Protestants, called Huguenots, came and proved to be just the kind of colonists the new land needed. In France, they were persecuted. But France's short-sightedness was America's good fortune. The Huguenots were carpenters and blacksmiths and masons, and they believed in hard work. What John Smith would have given to have had them in Jamestown. Field workers were needed to plant and harvest the rice that was making the colony rich. The settlers from Barbados were used to owning slaves. They wanted slaves in America, and they encouraged it. It is an irony that the Africans probably taught the white settlers how to cultivate rice, because it was rice that made slavery profitable in South Carolina. Soon there were more black people in South Carolina than whites. South Carolina became an aristocratic colony, with a very few wealthy people holding almost all the economic and political power. It was different from the other southern colonies in many ways, but especially because it had that important city, Charleston. In Virginia and North Carolina, there was no great city. For most of the year, plantation folk in those colonies lived isolated lives. That was not the case in South Carolina. Some plantation owners in South Carolina visited their plantations only occasionally. They spent their time in Charlestown, where they lived in big houses and went to fancy parties. The Huguenots mixed and married with the English. Their tastes and ideas helped create the most elegant society in the colonies. Those who were wealthier thought life in Charleston finer than any place on earth. But the majority of Charlestonians were not wealthy. The majority of South Carolinians were not free. They were Africans. They worked as field hands, craftspeople, and servants. But they had their own ideas and traditions. And they brought those African ideas, songs, stories, and habits to their new home. After a while, some of those African ideas became mixed with the ideas they found in America. Brer Rabbit, who started as an African, became American. In South Carolina, African Americans developed their own language, Gullah. Some people in South Carolina speak Gullah today. They talk quickly without a southern accent. Gullah combines words from English, French, and a number of African languages. You may have heard some Gullah words, such as goober, that's a peanut, gumbo, soup with okra, juke, as in jukebox, and voodoo, witchcraft. Here's a sentence in Gullah. Shisha una means sister is taller than you. Okay. Well, I hope you learned a lot about the Carolinas. Bye, y'all. See you next time you hear.